Joining me right now is former acting Department of Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf. Chad, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us. I got to get your take overall on the Biden administration policies with regard to immigration. But first, let's start on this new facility being used in Texas. Your reaction?
Well, this is the same facility and certainly other ones like it that we used in 2019 during the crisis that we had. And as you recall, Maria, we were resoundingly criticized for opening these types of temporary sheltering facilities for migrant children and migrant families. So we certainly see them doing that again here. And I would say that we certainly see an increase of unaccompanied minor children coming across the border illegally. And that's a concern. What's different today than was different in 2019, we had very few options in 2019 to address this issue. Today, fortunately, the Biden administration has a tool in their tool chest that they're choosing not to use, and that's a CDC public health order that allows them to remove these children quickly back to their home countries, back to Mexico, but they're choosing not to utilize this tool. And that's dangerous on a couple of different fronts, right? Because the CDC has told DHS and HHS that these children and others like it in a COVID environment should not be held in congregate settings. So this is an avoidable problem at the moment, and it's concerning.
Chad, let me ask you about the commentary yesterday from Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who confirmed that the Biden administration intends to suspend and terminate the safe third country asylum deals that you and your colleagues in the Trump administration brokered with El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. Is this connected to using that Texas facility? What is your reaction to the termination of those deals that you brokered?
Well, it's extremely unfortunate. We spent a lot of time and effort to get those asylum cooperative agreements in place with those three countries. It had a very visible effect on, again, addressing the 2019 crisis. And what we see today is, and I think your viewers should understand, we are in another crisis. There's about over 3,000 individuals crossing that border illegally every day is what CBP is currently facing. And so whether you look at the ACA, those asylum agreements that you just mentioned, whether you look at the deportation pause or the number of other executive orders that the administration is putting in place today, it's sending a signal to those cartels, to the human smugglers, the human traffickers, and others that the border is open. All you have to do is make it across, and that you will likely remain in the U.S. As your immigration proceedings go through. And what we saw in 2019 is that is a recipe for disaster. So I'm very concerned about my former DHS colleagues, the frontline men and women of CBP, particularly in a COVID environment, having to deal with an influx of individuals coming across this border. And again, this is a crisis that was completely avoidable.
Yeah, and when I took the show to the border, what struck me was the fact that border agents were acting like nurses. You know, they were there, and instead of doing their job in terms of securing the border, they were left having to deal with sick kids, people coming over that they had to bring to the hospital. In all different situations, it was a lot of kids being put in dangerous positions when we brought the show to El Paso, Texas. Here's what White House advisor Stephen Miller told me. I want you to walk through all of the changes in immigration and tell us what you think is the most aggressive and what is the most dangerous. But first, here's former White House advisor Stephen Miller with me on Sunday, walking through what was most concerning to him. Here it is.
This isn't Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative. This is just fundamental common sense. If you're here illegally and you commit a crime, you should go home. This is why it's so important that this Texas lawsuit filed by Attorney General Paxton ultimately be successful.
What do you think, Chad? What are the most aggressive and concerning points of the Biden administration immigration policies?
Well, I think so far, certainly the suspension of MPP, which is our Migrant Protection Protocols, or the Remain in Mexico program, that's putting at risk some of the asylum reforms that we had put in place. Obviously, halting border wall construction is putting the security of the southwest border, the men and women of the Border Patrol in harm's way. I would say also the pause that you just played there on the deportations for 100 days is very, very dangerous. You're asking law enforcement officers, DHS law enforcement officers, officers to make very, very tough decisions. I think in that executive order it says that, November 1st, if you came before or after, you could be deported if you came before, but not after. So you're asking law enforcement officers to now determine when someone illegally crossed the border to make a decision. So all of these start to add up. They begin, again, to have that pull effect, that pull factor that we continue to talk about, that is sending a signal, again, to the cartels, the smugglers, the traffickers, the individuals that control the pathways to that border, that send individuals through those pathways to get into the United States. You're sending a signal to them that it's open for business. You get them across the border, they'll stay here. That's what they want to hear. It's what we saw in 2019. And again, it's extremely concerning.
So, Chad, can the Republicans do anything to stop any of this? I mean, we just touched a bit on Ken Paxton and the state of Texas. Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, is suing the Biden administration. And as a result of that suit, he has been able to block Biden's order on deportation, at least temporarily, this 100-day situation. Is this the only sort of lever the Republicans have? Is it the attorneys generals? Are we going to see more state AGs push back? And what else can the Republicans do to stop some of these very concerning reversals in immigration?
Well, I'd say it's very tough. Obviously, the president has some executive authority here, but I would say it's certainly in the courts, whether that's attorney generals or that's other third-party groups. Obviously, what we saw over the last 4 years was a number of advocacy groups running to court, running to the Ninth Circuit in California to try to get those nationwide injunctions. So I would certainly say the courts are certainly an avenue for that. Obviously, Congress at the end of the day can address a lot of these issues, but you're probably not going to see a lot of help from Congress given the makeup on some of these tough issues, and that will be a slow effort as well. So I think in the short term, it's likely going to be in the courts if there's going to be any remedy, any way to address this issue. I don't see too many other paths.
All right, we will leave it there. Chad Wolf, it's great to talk with you. Please come back soon. We need to continue documenting and communicating to our audience what you're seeing as the most concerning here. This is obviously one of the most important issues for the American people. Thank you, sir. We'll keep watching.
Right,
Chad Wolf, joining.
Thanks for watching the Heritage Foundation's YouTube channel. With more than 500,000 members, we are the nation's largest conservative research and education institution. We believe the principles and ideas of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing. Please help us further our mission by subscribing to this channel and sharing our videos with your family and friends.